It's Tuesday, March 25th. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today on the daily chart we end up with a slight two-up continuation day. Didn't really close overly green, kind of neutral, but it's still kind of above the midpoint of the prior day and above the open of the week. So, at the moment, the continuity is still to the upside, but you could see on this two-up continuation, we failed to reach these two targets. So certainly the momentum's not there at the moment, and yet it's hard to say if the pullback is going to amount to anything stronger to the downside either. So we're still in kind of a tricky mode here where the week has started up for the first couple of days, but we're in an area of a gap between the low of that bar and high of that bar where it could fail at any time if this whole down move wants to try another test of these lows. And yet I've gotten to the point where we can draw this little broadening formation in the weekly chart, the higher highs and the lower lows, and if we slow, whether it's this week or into the weeks ahead, can get through the midpoint of this area, in other words clear this gap, then we could be starting our way up to higher highs, if you look at the big picture broadening formation. But we're not quite there yet, and we have to see how this week finishes out. And when you have a weak bar like this, you could easily envision a two down bar tomorrow, which could start offsetting, the climb that began last week. So we'll have to see what happens. If we have a two down day tomorrow, then that kind of projects to the lows of Monday and into this gap down here to start. It doesn't mean it's a weekly failure until we get below the midpoint of the prior week. So in other words, if we have a two down week, a day tomorrow below the lows of today down here, then we could be heading into this gap. But until we really break below the midpoint of this big trading range I identified, that doesn't mean, it's going to necessarily break all the way down, although anything's possible. But we just got to go day by day. And today the judge is, up day, continuation of the short-term uptrend, but not very strong. And it's just a matter of, in this environment, you just have to kind of go with, just kind of where intraday structure leads you and see what develops here before we can get a clearer picture of what's unfolding. I mean, on the monthly chart, as we get close to the end of the month, this is becoming more and more, at the moment, like a potential, hammer bar forming to show it might be just a 1 month pause in this over, and this could lead to a big trading range in here if in fact we don't close strongly red by the end of the month. But we're just going to have to see how the last few days go. I mean, it's very possible we get a big red day tomorrow, go below, and have a very strong day to the downside. That would, lead to some different expectations. But until that happens, we're just going to go with the daily flow without real strong, conviction one way or the other, the way I see it. So today, for example, I discussed early on how after that gap up and a little exhaustion risk, I wanted to see how price opened relative to the pre-market range, and it went down. I discussed how there was a potential in that case, you're above the midpoint of the prior day, looking for a red to green move that developed here. I bought calls for the target of the first bar high and the pre-market highs. I shot a video how I was a little suspect of the way price was acting up here, especially watching a bunch of other stocks that weren't following through. And I exited my trade, even if it was going to continue higher. And I wanted to see what happened. And then obviously the pullback kind of went all day long. To me, once you don't, I've discussed this on many of my videos, once I don't get a directional move in the morning of some kind, then I'm looking for liquidity to be taken out, normally on the downside. It doesn't mean I trade it that way, but that's kind of what structure seems to be telling you if you don't get a directional move early. So not surprising to me, we try to take out the low of the day, which would have been the only liquidity area, that developed early on. And we took that out a few times and then eventually popped up. So, like I said, it's not a trade I look to take, but it's something I understand about the way, I look at structure and then determine if it, in any way, shape, or form leads to a trading opportunity. Sometimes the liquidity is after, takes place in a way that you could buy it. But in this case, it's taken out the low of the day. You don't know for sure if it's going to then go all the way to this next level. So it's not like I'm buying down here the way the way I look to trade. I just look for the opening directional moves of the day, maybe a secondary move to the intraday high or low. And then I kind of know that if like I said, directional activity doesn't take place early on, then I'm kind of looking for certain liquidity areas to be taken out, or maybe reversals if the context is in play for a failure of some kind that could lead to a reversal. And there's other targets. So anyway, today was above the midpoint of the prior day. Above the midpoint of the prior day. So the bias was bullish all day. We broke out of this 5-day range. So it wasn't like I was looking to get short, but I certainly realized after I saw the way this pulled back that we weren't likely making a secondary move to test those highs. So not surprising, it just became a day of choppiness overall. That's what unfolded. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. Again, we have the reference to a 2-down day. I'll buy puts and see if we can break through that area. There's some good volatility to hit to those gaps, but then we'll have to see if that weekly chart becomes a reversal chart by the end of the week. We'll know more maybe on Friday how this green bar looks, and we'll have to just play it day by day in the meantime, because it's still possible we're going to test those lows, but it's just going to be based on how this weekly chart, unfolds. Either we fail very strongly tomorrow, or if not, then we're getting closer and closer to the end of the week, and we have to judge how this weekly bar is ending up. And for now, it's certainly still continuing higher, even though today didn't amount to much. But it did build up a little energy for another, potential strong move to the upside if that's what wants to unfold tomorrow. So as always, I'll look at the pre-market range, opening price action, and then the opening bar, 15-minute bar, and then judge how price action unfolds relative to that. But today, again, I discussed how even if I happen to exit the trade up here, but if you didn't, you should do no worse than break even. I shot a follow-up video showing if you got in here and didn't scale out and thought it was going to, have momentum to the upside, you had plenty of room to just, once it came down, to do no worse than break even. Then there was really nothing else to do all day. So, you'll see what happens, in the days ahead. I kind of know what's unfolding here, both on the daily chart and the weekly chart. We're going to just, ride this weekly chart wherever it goes and any kind of failure in this area could be good attempts to test these lows again. But it just could be developing. I almost sense that if because of the buying tails down here, maybe we're just entering a big choppy trading range, and it's going to take a few weeks to really get clarity into, some of the targets in play once price starts to move. But for now, we're just kind of bouncing off a bottom, trying to kind of work our way up into this big broadening formation, but a long way to go to do that. And you can see the price is, having a tough time with momentum to the upside. So that's why it's just, day by day at this point. And we'll just see what develops then for tomorrow and for the rest of the week.